Super Saiyan 4 is back. But why does Goku never use it in Super? Why did Toriyama decide to make it canon now? And how does this all fit into Super? Super Saiyan 4 is one of the most iconic Dragon Ball transformations, a primal and raw power only ever seen in GT and some spin-offs. Now that it's back in full force in Dragon Ball Daima, it's left us with many questions. First, let's talk about the new form, and then I'll go into detail on the story of Super Saiyan 4. In episode 18 of the Dragon Ball Daima anime, Goku faces off against the Demon King Goma, powered up by the evil Third Eye. Although Super Saiyan 3 does okay against him at first, the Tertian Oculus powers up Goma more and more. Seeing Goku in trouble, the extremely powerful Namekian Neva uses his magic to unlock something entirely new in Goku, tapping into his ancestral and primal roots to regrow his tail and unleash Super Saiyan 4. Well, we call it Super Saiyan 4 because it very clearly is a new take on that original form from GT, but it's very likely that it will have a completely different name. Let's first look at the design. The original Super Saiyan 4 was designed by Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru and has a lot of its DNA still here. We know that Toriyama designed a lot of the characters here, and it's very likely that this new design is his. But the only character sheet we have is from Nakatsuru himself. At first glance, the silhouette is undeniably the Super Saiyan 4 we know and love, but there are some very important differences. The most obvious one is that Goku has not been turned back into an adult. Remember, even if this is a new take of Super Saiyan 4, in the context of this story itself, it's something completely new, so it doesn't follow the same rules established in GT. Surprisingly though, this actually isn't the first time we've seen a child Super Saiyan 4, as Dragon Ball Heroes showed us the child Saiyan avatars in this state. Beat does look a lot like this new Super Saiyan 4 Goku. His hair is completely red, in a shade that reminds me of Super Saiyan God. Could it be connected to it? Put a pin on that, I'll come back to it. The main inspiration behind the hair might actually be Dragon Ball Heroes, where a powered-up version of Super Saiyan 4 was introduced, named Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4. This mode makes the user's hair shine red, though the aura also makes their entire body look more red as well. Before they settled on this look for the Heroes power-up, they actually considered a few more ideas, like a golden Super Saiyan 4, a more Ozaru-looking version, and one that still had the red hair, but less shiny. The way the fur contours around his chest is different from the one we know. His arm fur also stops further up. Speaking of his arms, that's one of the biggest changes, as they're a lot bigger than Goku's normally is. Nakatsuru's original design for Super Saiyan 4 did have pretty large arms, something that wasn't always carried over into the actual series. Anime AJ has an amazing video breaking down this episode where he talked a little bit more about that. His big arms make him look more like a monkey. This is exemplified in the way he runs on all fours, and the way he uses his tail. Since this is so GT inspired, it's worth noting that the GT Perfect Files mentions a theory that the original ancestors of the Saiyans were the Great Ape, and that the Saiyans evolved from them, gaining intelligence and changing over time. His eyes are also red, unlike the GT version, who has yellow eyes. This form has a lot of water and fire motifs. When Goku first awakens it, we see water droplets, with one even morphing into his tail, while he spits out fire and even engulfs the Kamehameha in flames later on. It's worth noting that the original Super Saiyan 4 transformation also had a similar water motif, with a teardrop in Goku's mind, while Super Saiyan God has a flaming aura and trippy weather effects during its transformation. Water has always been important to the Namekians. They survive off of water alone, and Dende had to use magical water to power up Shenron in Superhero. According to Anime AJ, storyboard artist Aya Komaki explained that the fire and water was chosen to show how Neva's divine magic is being combined with Goku's inner Ozaru, his inner fire if you will. But why can't Neva do this? I've seen people complain that it doesn't make sense, but there is certain ways to look at it. Keep in mind that Neva is the single most powerful Namekian we've ever met. He could build and destroy the barriers of the Demon Realm, created the very first set of Dragon Balls, built the Tamagami, and more. I mean, his dragon flicked away the main villain with ease. This also isn't unprecedented for magical abilities of Namekians. The Grand Elder unlocked the potential of Gohan and Krillin on Namek, and later Dende and Shenron unlocked a new form within Piccolo directly tied to his Namekian heritage. I mean, if Shenron could put Piccolo up to that level, who's to say that the strongest Namekian ever couldn't unleash something primal within Goku? It's also kind of a full circle moment, since the one to take away Goku's tail all those years ago was also a Namekian, Kami, only for a separate Namekian to bring it back. So let me pull my tinfoil hat for a second. My biggest theory when it comes to Neva is that he is the Namekian who wrote down the story of the Super Saiyan God in the Namekian Book of Legends. If you don't know, Toriyama explained in an interview years ago that Yamoshi's spirit visited a Namekian who wrote down his story in the Namekian Book of Legends, and that's how Shenron knows about the Super Saiyan God. Perhaps this was Neva. Maybe this is why Super Saiyan 4 has red hair similar to Super Saiyan God. Even the red color in his eyes replaces the yellow of GT and seems to be alluding to that godly transformation. So why has Goku never used Super Saiyan 4 after this point? In Battle of Gods, Goku specifically says that he has nothing more beyond Super Saiyan 3. This doesn't make sense with Daima now, does it? Well, in the context of the story, Goku is kinda telling the truth. From everything we've seen, it looks like Super Saiyan 4 is entirely dependent on Neva's magic. That little magic ball he uses on Goku is the key to the transformation. When Goma takes away Goku's power, his tail also disappears. So without Neva, it looks like there's no way for Goku to just regain the form. Goku isn't necessarily lying to Beerus, really. With that being said, I almost guarantee that this isn't the last time we'll see this form. Vegeta didn't do anything else on episode 18, which makes me think that they're saving him for the next one. Goku will likely only have Super Saiyan 4 within the Demon Realm as of now. For Goku to access it later on, he'll have to either learn magical techniques like Neva, have that Namekian around, or someone else who could use such magic. But I'm sure this isn't the only time we'll see it. So how did Super Saiyan 4 come to be in the first place? Well, during the development of Dragon Ball GT in 1995, Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru was chosen as the character designer for the new series. Though Toriyama did work on GT a little bit by making some character designs and art pieces to give the vibe of the show, most of the story was largely left up to the anime staff, including Super Saiyan 4 itself. In interviews, Nakatsuru has explained that the idea of making Super Saiyan 4 was a huge undertaking. Z had brought in fusions and Super Saiyan 3. What was there left to do? Nakatsuru decided on tapping into Goku's primal Saiyan nature, combining Super Saiyan with the Great Ape form. The final design was the only one ever made, with the only changes being colors over time, meaning that yes, at one point Super Saiyan 4 did have golden hair. Goku obtains this form during the fight against baby Vegeta, transforming into an Ozaru by using the Earth as a stand-in for the Moon. This golden Great Ape eventually calms down with the help of Pan and Earth. It's an amazing sequence, and one of my favorite transformation scenes. Now it's been 28 years and 1 month ever since Super Saiyan 4 made its debut, and now it's back. Although Toriyama was not heavily involved in GT, he did like many of the ideas brought in by the series. At a party to celebrate the ending of GT, Toriyama drew Kid Goku for Nakatsuru, and he did like the idea of Goku being turned into a kid again, saying that if he had thought of that, maybe the manga would still be going, though he had no intentions of drawing it. Later on, he even drew Super Saiyan 4 for the Dragon Ball GT DVD box set, and if we put the new version next to this old drawing, you can see the similarities. But why now? After 30 years, why are we seeing the essence of GT again? Well, Akio Ioku, the executive producer behind most of Dragon Ball, has explained recently that the aim of Dragon Ball Daima was to capture the spirit of GT for a brand new audience, while also bridging the gap between the adults who saw GT as kids and their children, so they could watch it together. Specifically, he mentioned that their main target audience were fans who grew up with GT. Ioku is an interesting figure behind the scenes of Dragon Ball, as he has been largely at the helm of the franchise for many years. He was responsible for looking into what the audience likes, doing a lot of research to figure out the future of the franchise, especially now that Dragon Ball is a huge global phenomenon. He had to keep not only Japanese audiences in mind, but the entire world. He was the one who suggested bringing Trunks back, for example, because he knew Trunks was a fan favorite. It's the same thing with Broly and Gogeta, two characters who were extremely popular, but were not actually canon prior to their movie. So you can see that for a while, Dragon Ball has been trying to streamline its popular assets, which had been spread around until recently, bringing them together into the main story once again. Hell, even stuff from Heroes like the Demon Realm and the look of Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker has been adapted into something different for the main story. In essence, Ioku has been trying to take things from non-canon aspects of the franchise, which people enjoy, and make them canon. Toriyama was not originally involved in Dragon Ball Daima, at least not heavily, but as Ioku and the team came to him for guidance, he became extremely enthusiastic about the story. Toriyama has been heavily involved in the movies ever since Battle of Gods, but the anime of Dragon Ball Super Super was mostly left up to Toei. This is the first anime series where Toriyama has taken the helm, since, unlike a movie, we have more time to explore characters and have side adventures, which Yoku says got him really excited. He designed nearly everything, from the ships to characters who only appear once to the strongest villains and heroes. So Toriyama went all out. But there's still some issues left open. How does this all connect to Super? Goku not using Super Saiyan 4 is just one of the issues. Things like Vegeta not using Super Saiyan 3, Kibito and Shin being defused, and everyone knowing about the universes are things that do contradict Super, which takes place later in the timeline. The obvious answer as to why these characters never show these forms is, well, Daima wasn't a thing back then, so obviously they wouldn't pull them out. But in this story itself, it's a little harder to explain. I've said before that I think that Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta isn't a thing because Vegeta decides to just focus on Super Saiyan 2. But many others think that Daima is just not connected to Super, that it's an alternate path for our heroes to follow after the Buu arc. This is an interesting theory, but one that I do not believe is true. They've been bringing ideas from Super into Daima, explaining in detail the birth of the universes, and even showing all the Supreme Kai from Super. I think more than likely we will have some kind of explanation, like our heroes having their memories wiped.
Sorry.
I'm not saying that I want this, and it wouldn't be the prettiest way to deal with it, but Dragon Ball has always had somewhat of a loose canon. I mean, we have two very distinct versions of Super between the anime and the manga. So even if there is hanging threads and contradictions, I don't see them making such an important story out of canon, especially with the way Toriyama was involved. This story is setting up characters that will come back later on, and more than likely, Super Saiyan 4 as well. Let me put on my tinfoil hat again, because I mentioned this on Twitter. Super Saiyan 4 has overshadowed nearly everything about this episode, so I haven't seen many people talk about the new Porunga. He's much larger and red. This seems like another homage to Dragon Ball GT, since there we had Ultimate Shenron. The big deal about that dragon was that he had a huge downside. Once his Dragon Balls were used, they spread all around the universe and would destroy the planet if the Dragon Balls weren't returned. Since this Porunga seems to be a reference to that Shenron, what if the downside to this Porunga is making the user of the Dragon Balls and those affected by it completely forget things, so they can't be used again by the same people? After all, Neva has been very protective about the Dragon Balls because they were once used for evil. But that's just a simple theory. With that being said, it's also very likely that the inconsistencies between this and Super are just never addressed in the anime, or any other animated project for that matter. Those behind the scenes have never really been concerned with that kind of thing. The one person likely to tackle those holes is Toyotaro, since he's a huge fan and likes to touch up things when it comes to lore. All I'm saying is that we desperately need a new Dragon Ball data book to tackle this and so many of Super's ideas in more detail. I was talking to a friend of mine about how Daima is Toriyama's last gift to us, and damn, what an explosive send-off, leaving us with a canon Super Saiyan 4. To me, it also means that anything is possible. We've gotten Gogeta, Broly, Super Saiyan 4, what's next? Could we get a canon cooler, a canon baby? It really looks like anything is possible at this point. But I will say, as much as I really do love Toriyama's new interpretation of characters, the real cool part about it was that Toriyama was making them his. Now that he's gone, what's going to happen moving forward? I personally want new villains, new characters, new adventures. I don't mind bringing in things from non-canon material, but I am looking forward to new content as well. So whether you grew up with GT or are seeing Super Saiyan 4 for the first time, this is an exciting moment for the Dragon Ball franchise. Toriyama bringing it back after almost 30 years is a testament to how beloved this transformation has become. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want more deep dives into Dragon Ball, be sure to check out my video explaining everything about the Saiyan power hierarchy.
Am I